and I am absolutely thrilled to be moderating a discussion with the cast and some of the creators of Wicked the movie. And the musical. Yeah, it's really exciting, really thrilling for me as somebody who saw Wicked for my 11th birthday in 2004. So I've been waiting almost 21 years to say this, basically. Please welcome to the stage Stephen Schwartz, who wrote the music video. We've got executive producer Marc Platt. We have Jonathan Bailey, who plays Prince Fiorno. We have the one, the only, Ariana Grande. We have the absolutely incredible Cynthia Erivo. And last and certainly not least, we have the director, John M. Chu. Wow, okay, you can see the enthusiasm is absolutely electric. It's electric in here because this movie is so incredible. But before we talk about the movie, I think we have to go all the way back because it's not, there's no movie without the Broadway musical. So that means there's no movie without Stephen Schwartz and Marc Platt. Stephen Schwartz is the lyrics. I would love to know if you can sort of take us all the way back, you know, to the 90s, I think, when this began. When did you both realize that you had something really special on your hands?
I read this book by this brilliant novel by Gregory Maguire with this great idea some in the late 90s and thought this would be a great movie. So I started developing it as a film, because I'm a film producer as well as a Broadway producer, and I thought this is so cinematic, wants to be on film. And I wasn't happy with the screenplay. Then one day, this genius of a man called me and said, I know you have the rights to Wicked and you're developing it as a film. I think it should be a stage musical first. And thank goodness I listened to him. Over to Steve.
Marc is telling the story. You know, I heard about the book from a friend of mine in a very random way. She just said, she told me the title and the idea. And immediately, you know, all the hairs on my arm stood up, and I thought, what a genius idea. And it just feels like it should be a musical, and it's so much in my territory in terms of the themes. So then I found out, of course, that the rights were sold to a movie company, and I thought, oh, well, this is a hopeless adventure because this is never going to happen, but I'm going to try and go and talk the movie company into not making a movie and starting with a stage musical. But I was very lucky because this was the gentleman running the movie company at the time. And so I walked into Marc's office with great trepidation and very enormous pessimism, and before I said anything, he sang. Did you sing Corner of the Sky?
Corner of the Sky. Wow! Give us 50 parts.
So I knew that maybe I had a receptive audience there.
Oh, that's incredible. I'd love to see your Corner of the Sky one day, Marc. I will say.
I really sing.
I saved that for my children.
That is so
Are we
fair.
not part of that family?
The bond.
Dad.
Oh, that's incredible. That's amazing. And I think the collaboration is so special, and that is so, finding two people who just gel and have such amazing chemistry, as you both did, is so important to create a work of art. And so that brings me to John M. Chu, which I should have said at the top, he just welcomed his 5th child last week. I just think he's so much birth. So impossible, man. That's why you're still waiting for me. You'll get there, you'll see her. But I have to know, because we've heard that Ariana and Cynthia, they didn't audition together, right? We never saw them test together, that never happened. How did you know, without any sort of chemistry read, that they not only were obviously perfect for the parts, but would be perfect together?
Because they took these roles from my hands. They literally entered the room, and we've been searching for a while, and bit by bit just took the whole thing, and you were like, there was no other choice for Galinda when you see Ariana Grande do this. There's no choice when she's so funny and you're like, she's the most interesting person in the room, and she owns it so much, you're like, wow, this is gonna feel like a discovery, because I've never seen this side of her. We have no choice when Cynthia Erivo comes in jeans and a t-shirt after she sold out the Walt Disney Concert Hall, and she just sings Wizard and I, and when she sings those first words, that really just happened. It feels like she's a little girl in a dorm room like me and at USC dreaming about making movies, and it connected so deeply. There was literally no other choice. These were the people. And so the chemistry, we're like, we'll figure it out. And the first time they met, they came to my house. This is, I don't know, 8 months later. They came to my house to meet for the first time. It's where I met a lot of people in person for the first time. This is during lockdown. And Stephen Schwartz gets on the piano and starts playing For Good. And these ladies just walk right up there, and I grab my kids, like, you're sitting right here and watching this. And as soon as their voices hit, and nothing was rehearsed, I knew we had a movie.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. I would love to hear from Cynthia and Ariana. What was that first moment like, singing together in front of Stephen and John and everyone?
I feel like the both of us were like, what? Yeah, but it's like it connected. It's a very intimate thing when you find a person that you can sing with, because it means that the both of you are willing to hear each other, and not just like listening to your own part, but you're actually intently listening to the person who's singing with you. That's more important than the sound of your own voice. When you can find the person who is willing to do that with you, you know that they're willing to like really go on a journey with you. And when that happened, I was so excited.
Me too.
Yeah.
I was so grateful.
You ruined it for everybody else.
Me, you too. You're really screwed.
Never singing with
I'm
anyone else.
spoiled for life.
What's gonna happen
I
now?
don't know. But it was beautiful. It was really special. We kind of noticed the first time we sang together that when we sing at the same time, it's hard to tell who's singing what. And our vibratos kind of latched onto one another, and they sort of hold hands and loop the same way, the same speed, and you can't really explain why something like that happens, but just a really insane connection. We were freaked out by it. We were like, what the?
We all cried. The rest of us just cried.
That literally sounds like magic to me. It literally, it's magic. It's so incredible. And I mean, your chemistry together, both of you, is so great. But I do have to say, the person who has the most chemistry with the most amount of people in the movie is absolutely Jonathan Bacon. I think you had a moment with every single student at Shiz. So tell me, where do you get that from? How do you do it? Like, is it a Richardson thing? Like, how do you do that?
It definitely wasn't directed, let me tell you. It just started to happen.
I think we did get a note from John saying, too bloody.
It was like 8 movies in that.
It's our Christmas too. Anyway, yeah, Chris Scott. I mean, it's interesting hearing this amazing story. I feel like this film is the sum of so many friendships and creative partnerships. And John has brought along a whole mini team of pals he's worked with for so many years, and it just set an incredible tone. One of which is Chris Scott, the choreographer, and he's incredible. And I was quite late to join everyone, but I started rehearsing. I was travelling in, and I'd have a day, and then me and Chris would just work intensely. And one of the things I said is that I do just think Fierro is confident and kind enough to invite everyone to Winky Country. And so everyone should be included, especially he's got such a huge arc actually, and he represents the change that these women create, I think, around them. So to make sure that he starts off with a relish was important, and the librarian, Sharida, she's
so cute.
I know it's never going to be as good as that for me.
Oh, that's so fantastic. I love that we're sort of an intimate group here. I really want to sort of home in on some specific numbers. I think Dancing Through Life is a great place to start just because it's such a big, joyous, dancing number. I mean, the camera work is insane. It's amazing. And then when we get to the Artist Ballroom, we see Elphaba absolutely shatters our hearts and our souls. So I would love to sort of talk for a second, I guess, in starting with John, how you conceived of that and decided to expand that from the stage version, because we do spend more time in that song than we do on the stage.
Yeah, we talked all about what we needed to do in Dancing Through Life, which is all with Johnny Fiero coming in and breaking the rules for these people. So the choreography was very specific and angled and stuff before, but then as soon as he comes, he sort of loosens their joints up. And as soon as we saw Johnny dance, then we're like, okay, this is like new John Travolta coming in here, and he was fearless, jumping on the book, sliding on the book. He's so physical, and so we designed this whole. I mean, he can do that all in one, from the thing to jumping on the books, to flipping the books, to going up. I mean, that's all him. And then with the tornado wheel, people wanted to call it the hamster wheel for so long. I was like, let's call it tornado wheel.
Tornado wheel.
So the tornado wheel, we knew we needed something. We're doing hints of different like Americana movies throughout this movie, like when they come into Shiz, it's sort of like an 80s John Hughes movie. We wanted to sort of deconstruct this idea, and sort of 2001, this sort of spinning thing, or Royal Wedding, however you want to see it, and the amount of work that engineer needed to do to build those three, the amount of insurance conversations I had to have, because any of those ladders could behead you. We couldn't build that until 2 weeks before we were shooting it, and then we didn't know what type of dancers to put in. Do you need stunt people? Do you need parkour people? Do you need poppers? Do you need breakers? It was like a mad rush once we got that thing to work.
Wow, what did you need? I'm so curious.
We got parkour. We got all of it.
All of it.
Parkour mainly because they could really walk on those. They had to be able to walk on those ladders. But we knew we needed to go big on that front side so that the Ozdesk could get as small as possible. We knew that the dynamic of Dancing Through Life had to be that, because the bigger we went, then the smaller we could go with them and go into silence and basically hand off the canvas to these two women. And that work was the two of them with Chris to just figure out how Elphaba moves. How does she make space? And is she defiant, or is she, she's been told to prove herself, been told to control her powers, or does she surrender to her power? And I love finding that because they really had it on the first time. And every time we shot it, you had to go from A to Z. We could not just cut into a piece. They had to go through all the emotions, and that was beautiful to watch. And that's all that.
Wow, what was it like for you, Cynthia, filming that moment?
Yeah, I mean, when we first sort of like figured out what we wanted to do, I walked in and Chris Scott and Comfort and Will, the associate choreographers, had already choreographed something, and I watched it and thought it was wonderful, but said no thank you, because it didn't feel like Elphaba. It didn't feel like her language. It didn't feel like that's the way she would move, at least truthfully for me. So we set to work finding out what movement felt right for her. I knew that I wanted her to be someone who could move, but she just understood movement differently. So once we discovered that this dance came out of something, we choreographed it to almost silence and just found out what like the rhythm would be and what the story was. And I kept trying to figure out, well, why when she takes the hat off, would she then put the hat back on? I need to give her a reason to go back and pick it up. And we sort of decided that it was in order to regain ownership of what the hat actually meant and what it could do, so that it really does become the emblem of the Wicked Witch when she puts it back on her head, and instead of it being an object of pain. And so then when that dance finishes, I was like, well, what do I do in order to invite Linda to come and join? What is that moment? And we realized that it was just sort of like a moment of quiet, and it's just like a shoulder movement which allows for sort of invitation. Can we start again?
Yeah.
And then wonderfully, Ari chose not to like learn it completely so that I could teach it to her.
Wow.
So every time we would do this dance, she wouldn't learn it completely, so that when we got to the day when we were shooting, she was learning it every time from me. And so we could really work in partnership. So that wonderful, I love when we get to put our hands together, because I get to guide her hands in the right way, and we get to move together, and we are moving at that pace so that it is like, oh, we're learning each other for the first time properly.
Wow.
And it was really tough, really painful, but rightfully so, and really necessary. I felt like the most protected, most safe, most held person in that room. Every single person put so much energy forward into the middle of the dance floor and really held me up, including John and Marc. And Ari was fierce in the protection, fierce in keeping the energy right so that I could get through it every time. Those tears fell every single time. It hurt every single time. But even still, I was always holding just a little bit, and they could all see it, so that by the end of the day, whatever was left just sort of fell out.
Wow.
And she sent me home at the end of it, yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's so beautiful to know that you were learning Ariana too at dancing. It just is so special, and that's a really beautiful thing to do with, you know, in a room full of people and the cameras are on you and whatnot. How did Ariana, how did that experience, how was that for you?
Well, I just felt that it was important, that it felt scary for me, just because I think in that moment, up until that very moment, Glinda's biggest fear is probably standing in a circle of a bunch of people being judged, or having them think something negative about you, the way that it's happening for Elphaba, being made fun of, not being liked, not being popular. I think that's probably her biggest fear until that very moment. And then it switches very quickly, and her biggest fear becomes hurting someone like that ever again. And it's not that she joins out of pity or out of, oh, I feel badly for this person. It's an urgent need to take it on with her. And it's like, how can I jump into this space and become one with this person that I've caused so much pain, and try to transmute it somehow.
Yeah.
And the not learning of the dance made for it to just look as beautifully awkward and honest as possible. And
And the restraint not to cry.
Yeah.
Because we were all feeling uncomfortable, and it would be so easy for you to fall into that same energy, and we were like, hold back, and like, I can hold back, this is my choice she's not gonna cry, but being on that cusp of that edge was just so beautiful to watch, and same with you guys are like walking this fine ledge of this, and it forced all our cameras to be more restrained, it forced everything to just sit back and let it play.
Yeah, John?
Yeah, I think it's been the greatest pleasure of mine just to observe, obviously in those moments, but also as the role of Gary, but also it's the two coming together, but John working with the two of you, and I think that is it was an amazing day to see the safety and the detail and the sort of, there was just like a glow and something that I wouldn't be able to describe it or put it to words, but between these three, and I remember just being there and observing it, and then Michelle Yeoh came back with her Oscar.
Yeah, you had a party for her at the Ozdo's Ballroom after she came back. That had to be the best Oscar party in the world.
And then her first scene up was with Johnny and me right after she returned. And we had this big Oscar party with a cake that was an Oscar, and then there was an actual Oscar. Yep. And then Johnny and I they were like, all right, Johnny and Ari, you're up with Michelle. And we were like, okay. Her first scene back after winning. We were like, all right, let's go. Here we go.
Oh my God, that's absolutely thrilling. That's absolutely crazy. That's wild. Wow. Oh gosh, I love how internal we just got, but then I also want to talk about some of the big moments, and I mean, one of the biggest, best moments is Popular. It's absolutely amazing. And it's beautiful. And if you heard this part of there, you're kicking your face and singing into the heavens, it's incredible. Something that like really I love, which I have to imagine is harder to do in a movie than it is on stage or even with a studio audience, is to be funny. Like you're not getting the feedback of like laughs, I'm sure, because of sound reasons, so you have to be really confident in your choices and know what you're doing. Where did you pull your incredible comedic timing from to pull that number off?
Oh gosh, I mean, thank you, first of all. And I did hear occasionally John hissing, laughing under Glinda's bed, so I knew I was onto something. But I don't know, I mean, the funny factor is kind of not in the room with you. You can't like judge it while it's happening. You just have to play it truthfully, and it felt real, so it's not really something that you're like, oh God, I hope it lands. It's just kind of what the character is doing, I suppose. I don't know, but my favorite thing about Popular Week was how much we got to play and how much John encouraged me to just kind of, get parts written, of course, and then he was like, okay, Linda, go do whatever, and I think we found some really fun things through that playfulness and the freedom to try and improv and try to make this one break. My favorite thing in the world is when she would break and laugh. That was an indicator. That was what we knew. But I mean, that's very fine. I think with comedy, it's just kind of playing the truth and then hoping that, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, well, it absolutely, gosh, it gets me every time. It really, and I think the pop is another amazing example of how we've expanded the world. And there's even some new music at the end of it, which I'm looking at Stephen Schwartz. How did you figure out how to sort of cinematically transform and take popular, already a perfect musical theater song and make it even more perfect for the screen with that brand new ending?
I just wanted to build the ending more, and I played it for Ari, and Ari at first was hesitant to do that because she thought it would look as if we were just throwing something in for Ariana Grande and not for the character. But I just said, if I thought of this in 2003, this is how the song would have ended. I just didn't think of it until now.
Wow.
And so once Ari was confident that it was actually an authentic choice, then she did it. And brilliantly.
And Ari had to be down for that. I mean, it was amazing. But then Ari, we were like, hey, if we're gonna do this ending, we gotta like up the ante. Like, we're not gonna cut. We're gonna do one take, and you're gonna do the whole thing. Every mistake, people are gonna pick apart. If you don't kick your leg up there, you gotta train for this.
I knocked my teeth out.
Can you do this? Are you willing to go there? And most actors would be like, no. Can we have one cut in the middle or somewhere? And she went for it, and that was so fun.
Oh, it's so fantastic. I absolutely, yeah. Another piece of expanded music and expanded scene. We have the wonderful cameos, which are actually actor Stephen Schwartz is right over there from the One Short Day. Can you talk a little bit about that just incredible new scene that's sort of like plugged into the middle of One Short Day, and then also working at all four of you getting Chris and Adina in the movie. Absolutely the gas out of this world. It's crazy. Yeah, I'd love to hear a little about the conception of that as well.
Yeah, Winnie Holtzman and I wanted to use the opportunity because we had time to show more how the wizard's propaganda, how he's getting out into the world this fake story, and persuading all of Oz that he has abilities that he doesn't. And also we wanted to explain more about what this mysterious book, The Grimmery, is, because it figures very importantly, not just in this movie, but extremely importantly in movie 2. And so I had written this kind of expanded version of Wizamania. Meanwhile, just as people who love Kristen and Adina, we were like, we have to get them in the movie somewhere. And we had all these not very good ideas about they could be somebody's mother, they could be a teacher, we had not very good ideas. And John Chu said, well, you've written these wise ones of Oz why don't we just have that be the two wise women of Oz and make it Kristen and Adina? And so it was just so much fun to do that. And again, the night when they came and we filmed that, and it was Ari and Cynthia and Kristen and Adina, we just basically shot it but cried mostly. So we weren't crying.
Wow, a lot of tears, But you're smart cookie. That's amazing to come up with that. Wow. Oh gosh, I guess going from One Short Day, that brings us into the last sort of act of the film, where we get this amazing action sequence where we've got a hot air balloon, which is a nice nod to the Wizard of Oz, and then we get to Defying Gravity, where you absolutely tear the roof off the place. We're just already there. It's one thing to sing that song. I think it's another thing to sort of do it while being hoisted through the air, thrown about. How do you prepare for a challenge like that and pull it off?
I put myself through some rigorous training because I knew I was going to be doing the stunts and singing live at the same time. So I wanted to make sure that my body was prepared for it. And I had an amazing vocal coach who just helped me find the breath I needed in order to do it. Because usually if you're singing something like that, and that needs a lot of force, that needs a lot of sound, usually you need the ground to push off of.
Yeah.
But when you don't have it, you have to find it somewhere else. And so it was about sort of replacing the ground with literally the air and my non-existent diaphragm because it was in a corset. So it was just like a real learning curve for me. I was really determined. I really wanted to do the song justice, and I really wanted to do the stunts because I wanted to feel like I was flying whilst I was singing this song. So I just did everything in my power that I could, and I, you know, endured whatever bruises and chafing and whatever was necessary to. And listen, the word chafing sounds funny, but the reality is it's painful, you know. But no. What it could have sounded, but it was much it was necessary. I wanted to make sure that I could experience both what flight felt like and what it felt like to sing that song in one. And I hope it was worth it.
Yeah, I think it was worth it. I'm gonna say, it's so thrilling. I think something that seeing the credits roll and from the movie and thinking about, you know, where we are in this industry and Hollywood and entertainment and Broadway and theater, just the sheer number of names that scrolled down during the credits, hundreds of musicians, hundreds of dancers, hundreds of productions, costumes, sets, everything, every aspect. It was it's such a full ensemble of artists that you got together to make this film. What was it like to corral that, and what does it mean to sort of be responsible for all those people and to make sure that their artistic vision comes to fruition? For you know, and in line with in line with the movie as a whole.
It's a mindfuck. We have the best job in the world. Like, we get to go into Oz. What filmmaker gets to go and build Oz? And you get to do Wicked. It's never been an anime movie. They never recorded it on the stage. This was like the greatest opportunity and fun time you could have in making a movie. And more than that, we had something to say with this. I think when we all got together, it was like, this isn't just a Broadway adaptation. This is at a moment in our world where people don't know what's next. And these girls offer two roads to what that could be. We all want to be Elphaba. We all want to, because we all feel that way, and we all want to explode into the world and say, never again. But in a weird way, we're sort of Glinda. We're debating, should we, can we, is this best for me? And I love that they sort of find each other in the middle, and that's sort of what I think the course of both movies will do. But it is a huge task. I couldn't have done it obviously alone, but it is, I think we had to put the horizon line as high as possible. And when you do that, we put the script on the wall and we put emotions to each scene. Because I don't know how to tell Paul Taswell how to design. But I can say, you and Cynthia go away, but this is, yearning is the scene. What's the clothes that she needs to wear for him? What's the hair? What's the makeup that she needs to do? And for Popular, this is her superpower. She's actually sharing not just a silly thing. She's sharing her actual superpower, influence. So I don't know what she needs to wear for that. I guess it's a peignoir. I've never heard that word before, but they'll do that. And for Defying Gravity, it was every piece of stunts and VFX that build as much as you can because it really helps us. So we say a lot about the physical stuff, but the VFX needed those things, and they are all over this movie. And I think all of those things together, and we each of us thought of like, if we're blowing up this idea of the Wizard of Oz, of this American fairy tale, with this new idea of what a hero looks like, of what a villain looks like, of what we're supposed to do, that each character needs to ask their first question, their first real question in Oz. And I love mapping that out when Johnny's in that forest. And he asks, and his brain breaks, which is then you would be so unhappy, and watch each of them break open. So to me, it was all the big spectacles, but everybody understood the beats that they were doing. They would come to our rehearsals, all the department heads, and we'd walk through everything, and Marc and Steven, we'd all be talking through this constantly. which is maybe why we talk a lot about it, but we've talked about it. And then each would take their craft and their language and infuse the movie with that. And I was just like, let's get it on film, get those things in jars and just try to see. So.
Thank God you got it in jars so we could all see it. It really blows every expectation, which I think a lot of people had a lot of expectations because this is such a beloved property and it has been and will be till the end of time. And it's just really, it's really special to have not only met those expectations but exceeded them at every turn. So I want to thank all of you for